I've been helping producers through coaching, and there's always one constant theme that I'm seeing that warranted a video to talk about it because it's this one thing that always gets in the way of their progression. Most of those that I coach are artists themselves who want to learn production to kind of free themselves and to express more creativity that they're wanting, and mainly to paint a more accurate picture of what's in their head, which is great. I think every musician should have some kind of familiarity of the concept of production. But the thing that I don't think most realize is that production and instrumentation or songwriting, those are all different forms of art. Many times, and I would even say most of the time, all those things get kind of lumped together as one craft. I personally don't believe that I'm a good songwriter. I never really thought that was one of my strong suits. So in my videos, that's what I focus on, producing, never songwriting, because it's a different form of art. So with that being said, this is the number one thing that I think artists who focus on producing, this is what holds them back. They practice, and I put the emphasis on practice, on their original music. This is why that's a problem. I want you watching this to think about when you first started learning your instrument. We can all relate that there was definitely times when you felt so frustrated with the learning process because you didn't feel like you were necessarily progressing at all. And from that, you probably felt like quitting several times. Because learning anything is frustrating. Learning a language is frustrating. Learning how to drive is frustrating. It's only that frustrating because it's unfamiliarity. You just don't know. Obviously, you're going to get frustrated if you see someone else who does this thing at this level and they do it super great and you're down here in your mind and you're not getting it. Yeah, that is absolutely frustrating. So we all agree, learning is frustrating on its own, and especially when it comes to learning art, you don't really have a clear sense of direction on what you're supposed to learn. You know, it's not like algebra where you have these certain concepts that you can kind of focus on and then eventually master. Art is extremely subjective, and at times it can feel like you don't really know what you're supposed to be learning, I guess. But most of us musicians learn songwriting before we practice because songwriting is probably one of the most accessible things to practice. I mean, think about writing a song. What more do you need than a pencil and paper? You know, that's it. You don't need anything else. But with production specifically, that kind of comes later in the game. As you get comfortable in writing these songs, you'll finally want to take it a step further and learn production. So you'll buy a computer, you'll buy some recording gear, and then you'll just try to figure it out. And then the main problem occurs where we're used to writing songs and we're used to making music this certain way that we think when we learn production, we just apply it to that. So we start to practice production on our own original ideas because we're so eager that we have all the software and we want to elevate that sound. But we invite the growing pains of learning into our art. And then we start to get extremely frustrated with the process because it doesn't sound anything like it does in our head. So instead of getting frustrated with the learning process like we did when we were learning our instruments, we get frustrated with creating in general. And we get frustrated with our original work, and that's when we start to scrap projects that could be great forms of art. So in a way, the learning phase completely kills our creativity, which then leads to exhaustion, which then leads to burnout, which then eventually leads to falling out of love with your passion. So how do we fix this? What do we do? And this is what I suggest to all of my coaching clients as well. Treat practicing production as if you were treating it learning an instrument. And when we're learning an instrument, we're not writing songs for ourselves right off the bat. At least most of us aren't. I didn't. Most of the people I talked to didn't. Maybe you're different. I don't know. But usually we start with practicing other people's music. So when you practice production, don't practice on your original music or really anything that you care that much about. Either remake other people's songs or just make gibberish. When it's not something that you've written, the stakes are much lower and there's not really this pressure that you put on yourself to get it right. So remaking other artists' music is absolutely great, and it also trains your ear in a much different way. So when you hear someone else's acoustic guitar recording compared to yours, you will probably realize like, oh, there's not as much low end to this, or oh, there's not really this crazy amount of compression. And voila, you understand why your favorite records sound the way that they do. And from there, it gives you more of a sense on how to form your own sound. You'll start to learn what makes this drum sound so great, or what makes this vocal really stand out, and you'll be able to be inspired and take these things from other things that you're remaking and bring them into your music. Because that's what I believe great art is. I think it's a call and response from what inspires you. But also, have a solid plan for practice. Wandering aimlessly and sitting at your computer for like 8 hours a day doesn't really get you anywhere. What gets you somewhere is the boring little stuff, like understanding what an EQ actually does, or one of the biggest pain in the butts that I know everybody struggles with, how a compressor actually works. Mastering those fundamentals, that's what gets you far, not sitting at your computer all day just trying to make as many songs as you can. I've said this tirelessly in other videos of mine, but you have to practice with purpose. And most of all, be patient with the process and be kind to yourself as well. If nobody else will tell you, I will tell you, I think you're doing great. I hope this little bit of insight is helpful to you in any sort of way. And if it was, I do hope that you consider subscribing. And if you are interested in applying for coaching, please see the link in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace.